We judge progress by what we can see, a visible result, a number that moves something we can point to. This feels like a proof that we are getting somewhere. So when we look at our own efforts and the surface shows nothing, we conclude we are going nowhere. But this gets the order of things almost exactly backwards. The most valuable kinds of progress do not begin on the surface. They begin underneath it, in your understanding, your judgment, your skill, the quiet foundations that decide what you are capable of. And those things change long before anything visible does. By the time progress shows up, where you can see it, the real work has already happened somewhere you could not. This is about learning to recognize that hidden work, because it is almost always the part that matters most. The difficulty is that we can only easily measure what is visible. We can count the numbers, track the outputs, point to the things that have surface. We cannot easily measure understanding deepening or judgment sharpening or a foundation quietly becoming more solid. So almost without noticing, we begin to treat the visible as the whole of progress, because it is the only part we can put a number on. And what gets measured gets chased. We end up pursuing visible proxies, the service metrics, the things that move quickly and show immediately, the activity that can be seen. Meanwhile, the deep, invisible work, the kind that genuinely changes what we can do, gets neglected because it stubbornly refuses to appear on any dashboard. The measurable quietly crowds out the meaningful. We optimize for the part of progress we can see and starve the part that actually decides where we end up. And then we wonder why all that visible motion never seems to compound into anything real. So here's the shift. The most important changes happen below the surface. And the surface is the last thing to move. Think of how anyone actually gets better at something difficult. For a long time, nothing external improves, and then one day the external result jumps. But the jump was not the progress. The jump was the moment, an invisible change, which had been accumulating for ages, finally become large enough to break the surface. The visible result is downstream of an invisible one that came first. This means a flat surface tells you almost nothing about what is happening underneath. The water can be perfectly still while the depths are moving. So instead of asking what visible result do I have to show, start asking what has changed in what I understand, what I can do, what I notice. That is where progress lives first, and that is where you should be looking for it. The first thing to understand is where real progress actually lives. It lives in the things that determine your capability, your understanding of how something works, your judgment about what matters, your skill at doing the thing, the soundness of the foundation you are standing on. None of these are visible from the outside, and most are barely visible from the inside either. They change so gradually that you rarely catch them changing, but these are the things that produce every visible result you will ever have. A better outcome is simply the surface expression of a deeper capability that improves first. This is why two people can produce the same visible result and be in completely different position. One built in on a deep foundation that will keep producing, the other on a shallow trick that will not. The surface looked identical. Underneath, they were nothing alike. Real progress is the part you cannot see, and it is the part worth building. The second thing to understand is why we miss it. We are biased powerfully towards what we can measure. A number that moves feels like evidence, a capability that quietly deepens does not, because we have no easy way to register it. So we trust the visible and discount the invisible, even when the invisible is the more important of the two. This bias has a cost. It pushes us towards visible activity that produces quick, measurable signals and away from invisible work that produces nothing measurable for a long time, even though the invisible work is usually where the real value is being made. The person chasing visible proxies feels productive and looks busy and may even be moving numbers while building almost nothing durable. The person doing the deep, unmeasurable work feels as though they are getting nowhere while quietly becoming formidable. For a while, the feeling and the reality are completely inverted. Trusting only the measurable means trusting exactly the wrong signal. The third thing is the practical skill, learning to recognize invisible progress before it surfaces. Because it does leave traces. If you know where to look, the work starts to feel slightly easier, though the results have not changed. You begin to notice things you used to miss. Distinctions, patterns, mistakes you would once have walked straight past. Your questions get better. The things that confuse you stop confusing you, and what confuses you now is more sophisticated than what confused you before. You recover from setbacks faster. None of these show up on any external measure, but every one of them is a leading indicator, a sign that the invisible foundation is strengthening well before the visible results catch up. Learn to read this signal and you gain something rare, the ability to know you are progressing while the surface still insists you are not. That knowledge is what lets you keep going when the scoreboard would tell you to stop. So when you watch someone who seems to have suddenly become good at something, remember that the visible leap was preceded by an invisible reorganization you never witnessed. They did not get better at the moment you noticed. They got better long before, underneath, where no one was looking, and the same is true of you. The progress you are making right now is most likely invisible to others and quite possibly to yourself, which is exactly why it is so easy to doubt. The remedy is to judge yourself by the right indicators, not the still surface, but the moving depths beneath it. Ask whether your understanding is deepening, your judgment is sharpening, your foundation strengthening. If the answer is yes, you are progressing, regardless of what the surface shows. The visible will follow. It always does. It is, after all, made of the invisible. So stop demanding visible proof before you will believe you are getting somewhere. The best progress does not announce itself, and it does not show up first on the surface. Look underneath instead at what you understand, what you notice, what you can now do, and trust what you find there, even when nothing external has moved. That trust is what carries you through the part where it finally shows. If you want a calm, practical place to begin building something real underneath, there is a free resource in the description below. Start there. A still surface is not still water. The real progress is happening underneath.